Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Enterprise Confessional. Today's episode is all about planting seeds in new soil, and I wanted to get into what it really means to step into a new city, test your growth, and have the patience to let it grow. So, where I am right now, I am in Texas, y'all. So I ended up packing up and leaving North Carolina, and it has been quite a journey to say the least. Ended up getting here, getting sick, and things did not go as planned. And it's so funny, you guys. I always talk about this, tell this to my clients, I tell it to people I talk to all the time. Things do not always go as planned, but guess what? We don't let that stop us. And so the whole reason I came to Texas is because I actually am trying to grow community. So I actually did end up starting to grow community here back in the springtime. And the city of choice that I was planting roots in is Dallas. I shared a little bit about, the future of what it is that I'm trying to build, and also how Dallas is, it's growing crazy. Texas in general, everywhere is growing, but this is one of the major tech hubs. And I knew that I needed to be here building community. And so these are two different cities that I am actually piggybacking off of. Like I'm going between Dallas and Houston, and two different energies, but definitely the same mission. And so the first segment I want to talk to you about is the uncertainty and the excitement of testing new markets. And what does that look like? So I just want to give you some insight on the raw feelings of being in a new environment. So there's a thrill of opportunity that happens before we do that thing. And of course, nobody is immune to fears and, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? This is a new thing I'm doing. What will people think? And all those feelings. And I actually still experience those. I tell people all the time, just because somebody may be seasoned at what it is that they do, don't think that they are immune to fears and failures and all of that. Like, all of those feelings definitely happen. And so I wanted to talk to you today about what the testing looks like in real time. So going to events, having conversations, observing the culture differences, watching how people respond to the message, presence, and value. I just want to tell y'all, I have never felt more supported. Like, I truly have walked into situations where, people are so welcoming. People are definitely on board with what it is that I'm creating, and vice versa. I've met some amazing founders themselves. Major kudos to all the people that I have met. Y'all know who y'all are, who have really, really gone out of your way to share your own vision with me, and just talk about what it is that you're able to do and how we can cross collaborate. It has been nothing but good vibes. And I mean that for real. It has been absolutely amazing vibes. And I was actually shocked. I'm like, wow, okay, so this is a place where I should have never been afraid to build roots in to begin with, because it was actually on my heart about, heading this way, trying to build community and expand my mission a couple of years ago. But of course, I was just like, let me just do Charlotte instead. Charlotte was more in a comfort zone. But man, timing is everything. I'm so grateful that, I have taken the leaps that I did that have allowed me to be able to basically prepare my nervous system for taking such a large stride, way out of my comfort zone. It was really, really dope so far. And just in general, when I look back at the past, the little bitty leaps that I have taken before I did this one, it actually allowed me to really, really prepare for the capacity that's needed to be able to execute something in a new place where you don't know anyone. So, moving into just like a personal story moment, I want to share with you guys where I felt out of place, but I reminded myself I've been here before. So, starting fresh is familiar. And a story that can relate to I've been here before is me taking my first leap of faith when I decided to rebrand myself and do a different approach with my business. Because where I started, years ago is not where I am right now. And obviously that's going to happen because the more and more that you continue on your journey, the more you grow. But what I've come to realize is that it has become easier to make leaps of faith. I wouldn't say easy, but easier. And the reason I say easier is because I have taken those little mini strides in between, as I said before. So going from a place of familiarity into unfamiliar is something that I've done in little bitty specks over the years. So the first thing I did was, relocating out of the state to the West Coast, and then coming back to familiar, and then relocating again into unfamiliar territory. And then, so it's just like a push and pull that you do over time. And it truly has helped prepare me for what it is that I'm walking into now. One thing about the journey that I have grown to really, really appreciate for sure is being a amateur. And I think so much of us can relate to not wanting to make a fool out of ourselves when we don't know something. Like a lot of times people will stay in the same place because they're afraid to basically buckle at the knees when they don't know something or they don't know an answer. And I honestly have learned to embrace acknowledging that I don't know everything. And I have become okay with being the one that is willing to basically go through a humiliation point. And the reason I say that because it literally is humiliating to experience failure, to experience being an amateur all over again. We basically create this identity around ourselves once we become comfortable with doing something, once we become a master at one thing. But what happens when, again, you go into that unfamiliar territory, you have no choice but to become an amateur all over again, to become that new girl on the block, new guy on the block, this new student in town. So it's such a beautiful journey to really embrace all of those emotions and all of those feelings because it's very valid. But at the same time, the more and more that you do these uncomfortable things, the more you'll be able to understand where I'm coming from when I say you learn to embrace them. While we're on this subject, I wanted to give you some adaptation strategies. So basically what this means is this is going to help you stay rooted in your brand identity. So for those of you guys who are enterprise owners already, or you are one that's looking to create a brand identity for yourself, I just wanted to go ahead and break down how brand identity actually can act like the seed. So it doesn't necessarily change, but how you plant it matters. And so for me, Houston may require a different approach than Dallas, or Dallas may require a different approach than Houston. And I mean, even on a larger scale, these two places, these two community areas could require a totally different version of what it is that I'm saying that I would usually say in Charlotte or in North Carolina, but the core message here is going to stay consistent. And so what staying rooted for me means is to really, really fine tune what my brand pillars are. Oh my God, I got tongue tied. Brand pillars are basically going to be those legs that are underneath the very foundation of what it is that you are creating. Staying rooted in my brand pillars absolutely is a major part of my strategy where I am right now on my journey. And basically what this means is that my brand's purpose, aka why I even chose to become in existence, is going to stay the same. My positioning as far as how I stand out from my competitors is going to stay the same. Personality, perception, and promotion, all of those things are going to be in the same realm. Moral of the story is that with me being rooted in who I am as a brand, what I'm creating, and the movement, just because the location is changing doesn't mean that I'm going to change. And so this is where I want to touch base again on what rebranding is and what a pivot is and all those things. So a lot of people think that rebranding is, oh, you got a new logo, you changed up your templates, you changed up, the way things look. That's not a rebrand. A rebrand is literally changing the trajectory of what it is that you're doing. So that means you no longer have the same goal in mind. You have changed things completely. And this is relevant to what I'm speaking on right now as far as staying rooted in your brand pillars, staying rooted in the audience values that are never going to change. Once these things start to become compromised, then that is where you decide to do the rebrand and the retouch and all of those things. A practical takeaway that I want to give you based off of everything that I just shared so far, because I don't want to lose you and I don't want to overwhelm you with this information. Observe before overextending. So learning the lay of the land. Just basically look at what types of marketing strategies that you need to do in this new territory. And this is honestly something that I have constantly always tried. Like, I've never been against doing new things when it comes to marketing my business. What you want to do is see what's already working. And so a lot of people here started building small group communities. And it's been very successful. And so by this being a new state, I was like, hey, well, let me try this over here and see what happens. The second tip that I want to give you is tweak what it is that you're doing without actually diluting what it is that you do. And when I say tweak, I mean do a little this, a little bit of that here and there. But as far as diluting your service as a whole, I absolutely would not recommend, because then you basically start to compromise your values. You start to compromise your brand strategy, and we don't want to do that. And my third tip that I want to give you is to trust your core identity to attract the aligned people anywhere. I mean, literally, y'all, I have had my own brand strategy in place. So by me being a brand developer, I do the same things that I coach my clients on, that I teach about in workshops. And the number one thing that I always tell people is that you have to understand the amount of energy you do or do not put into your strategy reflects in the market, period. There are so many different ways that there are signs that you do not trust yourself actually show up in your marketing. If you don't truly believe in what it is that you're talking about, whether you offer a product or a service, people can tell. And so that is a major red flag, especially if you're trying to work your way up to be authority or expert at the top of your field. This right here is a big no-no. And it's also how I can tell when I work with clients who lack the understanding of how their confidence is a direct reflector of the results that they're getting, basically. Confidence issues are definitely at a all-time high. And this was actually a conversation I just had with a consultation client that I had this week. As a matter of fact, I was just talking about how many times people do not take the leaps and bounds that they really, really need to do in order to see the results they desire in their business. Is because they lack confidence. And I can honestly say, you guys, over 50% of the people that I have talked to alone, they suffer from confidence issues in their business. And y'all, when I tell you, I have seen some amazing businesses, like some awesome people that are really, really doing it, and they really are experts in their field, but they don't really market like it. And so this is where sometimes, even on my consultation calls, like, I've had to snap people out of it and really speak life into them, because it's like, they want to make it happen. They want to implement the things that I'm putting in place, but they just don't have the confidence to show up. And it's actually really sad, and sometimes it breaks my heart. And so this next segment that I want to go into is talking about the importance of patience too, on the both sides. So not only do I have to have patience as someone who is assisting these clients, but they also have to have patience with themselves and understand that many times the money goals that you're trying to reach in your business is a direct reflection of your confidence. So if your confidence is low, you're not going to be able to sell. They're not going to really be able to feel your marketing. They're not going to be able to really, really pick up the greatness that you have inside of you, because you're talking very low. You have your head down, and the energy is just off and people can tell. You should be excited to talk about what it is that you do. You should be excited to create community. You should be excited to tell me as your brand developer, you know what, this is what I do, this is what I specialize in, I'm an expert at this, I'm open to learning. Like, that absolutely moves the needle in the process of working together, whether you have a brand strategist, a marketing strategist, or even if you're building a team or community. People are really, really moved by fire. And talking about patience when it comes to building community, it's definitely not an overnight process. And so what you want to do in that in between time while you're building towards your goal, say you're on month 1 of building something great and you're in a brand new environment. Okay, you have an opportunity to start over. There's a temptation that comes up too. And I do want to touch on that. The temptation of wanting instant gratification when stepping into a new place. A lot of people I've talked to over the past year, I will say I have definitely had to do my due diligence and put basically like a sheet of what I do not do in my consultations. And so a lot of people get my job confused with, today's landscape. I'm just going to go ahead and call it what it is. A lot of people are lying about the results that they're getting. And so people are not used to someone coaching them from a level of patience. People are not used to being coached from a level of, this is actually probably going to take 90 days to do, because from what I'm seeing right now, you don't have the confidence to do this in the next 7 days. A lot of people are not used to that. So I just want to say, a lot of the things that people want, it's unrealistic expectations. And that is another confidence issue that comes about, because here you have set this unrealistic expectation for something to be built overnight because of whatever energy you're in. You're probably like, hey, I have to make some money. I got to make something shake, probably in survival mode. But it's like, realistically speaking, the first thing that you need to work on before you try to implement a sales strategy, a marketing strategy, let alone, you need some confidence coaching. You need somebody to speak life into you. And so I wanted to compare the difference between community building and planting. So planting a seed, planting this thing, we want to build this massive, beautiful tree that is here to last hundreds of years. I mean, I know a lot of people probably don't even think about it like this, but I want to encourage more people to think about their business and what it is that they're doing in a long-term frame. Right. So I recently talked to someone who was saying they're building their company based off of like 40-year increments. And I thought that was so inspiring, because it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I really, really made the decision that I wanted to create something that lasted for over 50 years. And so the first step to doing that is you break the ground. Then you plant the seeds, you water, and then you wait. You have to wait. There's a waiting period. And in between those waiting periods, this is where you invest in that coaching. This is where you invest in someone like a brand developer, a brand strategist. A lot of the clients that I have offboarded, people I've talked to, they're like, oh my God, this was the first thing that I should have did, before I launched my business, because basically what you're doing is you're helping me break the foundation. So after they have already structured their business, then they're coming back and trying to figure out what goes wrong. I want to make sure that I'm relaying the message to slow down in order to speed up. And what that looks like is, do we have the business structured properly? Are you structured as an LLC? Are you structured as an S corp? All those things. Now, granted, that's not my cup of tea, but I do understand some layers of that. And a lot of people will skip all the steps. They'll go all out of order, and they're wondering why things are running amok. But back to my point is that you in between those seasons of you watering and then you waiting, and then there's a season for sowing, there's a season for reaping. This is where you do your coaching. So only after the seasons of nurturing does the harvest actually show up. And so I want to share a little personal story about how I've had to slow down, give myself grace, and focus on quality relationships. I will say my most humbling year I have had as of recent was definitely 2022 through 2023. I was forced to sit down, and I have in place my own strategies. I have my own marketing strategies. Like I'm not a person that feels like I'm above being coached. I have my own mentors. When I tell you it was one of the most craziest seasons of those 2 years, because I was stripped from everything. I was stripped from everything and had to start completely over. And I'm so grateful for that, y'all, because when I tell you this rebuild has been something different, it's been something crazy, and it's been something that doesn't keep me constrained within one single realm. And so I just want to use that to encourage you about the importance of patience and the importance of being stripped away of things that no longer serve. Because just like in personal life, things are stripped from you, pruned from you, and you have to go through a season of waiting and a season of sowing and watering and all the things. I had to go through that same exact process. So nobody is exempt from that. Everybody has to go through that in business. I don't care what it looks like on the internet. Everybody has to go through it, because you will not have the level of appreciation for what you're building until you really, really experience that. So, my main themes that I want to leave with you today in closing, these are my key points, and I actually want you to write this down: uncertainty, adaptation, and patience. So, what soil are you planting in right now? And what are you giving yourself enough time to sow and water and wait and nurture? Are you doing any of that? So what does that look like for you right now? I definitely want to share more and more about the seasons of planting that seed, and please let me know, you know, if these conversations really really serve you or do something to you. I would love to hear, because there are so many other stories to come where it's relatable, and I know that a lot of people are not used to this level of vulnerability behind the scenes in the confessional. But I have so many stories, y'all. Like, I think that it is such a beautiful journey to be on, to be able to not only have these stories to learn from in my own experience going forward, but I also meet people, like literally some of my previous clients, who are like, yo, there's a reason why I actually solo travel now. Like, there's a reason why I started a business outside of the beauty industry now. And it was because of you. It was because you opened up and you shared your story about, all these things that you experienced. And so I'm super, when I say super over the moon about this journey through Texas, this journey of driving over 20 hours alone. Oh my God, y'all. It was truly like one of the scariest but exciting but humbling but like nervous but excited. Like, it was all the things, and it was so reflective of the journey through entrepreneurship, because a lot of people had to go into entrepreneurship because they've lost their job and they didn't have, the necessary tools to do what it is they need to do to go to college. So this one is for those listeners. This one is for the listeners who are in that waiting season. They need to be coached, or they may not be able to be coached. So the only thing they can do is go on YouTube and listen to podcasts. And so today's episode really, really covered a lot, just talking about planting those seeds in new soil and testing, tweaking, trusting the process, not knowing if it's working out, but then it ends up working out. It's so many twists and turns in this journey. And I'm always excited to bring y'all with me, even in the midst of everything, and also just reflecting on all the things I've experienced over the years. So I will see y'all in the next episode, and I hope you have an amazing day or night wherever you are on purpose. Bye, y'all.